We continue now at the top of Daf Gimel Amud Beis Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 73b. Rav Huna says, Shalmei ha'ovdei kochavim, if you have a carbon shlamim of an oved kochavim, of a non-Jew, olos, they have the status of olos. Rashi explains, Shalmei ovdei kochavim, oved kochavim shenodar lahavi shlamim. If he makes a neder, the oved kochavim makes a neder to bring a shlamim, olos, and it doesn't have status of shlamim, it has the status of olos. Ve'ein nechol, the point is they're not eaten. V'hu adin de minchasan, the same would be true by their mincha, kolel, it would be entirely burned. That's what it means, Shalmei ha'ovdei kochavim olos. And the Gemara continues, Ibo yisei makrav, Ibo yisei masvar. If you want, I can say that it's from a pasuk. If you want, we could say it's logical. Ibo yisei masvar, if you want, we could say it's logical. Oved kochavim, libo lashamayim. And oved kochavim, his intention is lashamayim. He's thinking that it should be entirely burned, not to be eaten. Ibo yisei makran, if you want, we could say it's a pasuk. The pasuk says, Asher yakrivu lashem laola, that they bring to Hashem as an ola, and that means kol de mekarvi, anything that they bring, ola lahave, it has the status of an ola. And the Gemara continues, Mesav Rav Chama bar Gurya. Rav Chama bar Gurya asks, and this is from a Tosefta, the Tosefta says, Over Kochavim shehisnadev lahavi shlamim, if an Over Kochavim makes a donation to bring a shlamim, Nisanan li Yisrael, if he gives it to a Yisrael, Yisrael ochlan, the Yisrael eats them. Nisanan la Kohen, if he gives them to a Kohen, ha-Kohen ochlan, then the Kohen eats them. And so therefore it seems to have the status of a regular shlamim. As Rashi says, ha-Kohen ochlan kashar shlamim, meaning like any other shlamim. The kashal Rav Huna, and this is a question against Rav Huna. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rava, Rava says, Hachi Kamar, this is what this Bryce is saying. Al Menashri is chaper behen Yisrael, if he's doing it on the condition that the kapara should be for the Yisrael ochlan, then the Yisrael is going to eat them. Al Menashri is chaper ben Kohen, if it's so, the Kohen is going to get the kapara, Kohen ochlan, then the Kohen is going to eat them. We'll take a look at the Rashi Ksaviyad. Rashi Ksaviyad explains, she is chaper behen Yisrael means, Sha'amar ha'oved kochavim, if the oved kochavim says, Harezu shlamim, this is a shlamim, lahakriva b'shem ploni shenadar lahavi shlamim, to be brought for so-and-so who made a neder to bring a shlamim. Dehanach v'adei necholim, if it's in that fashion, it certainly is eaten. Dehabishvil Yisrael kasa, the whole thing is for Yisrael. Umatanahu deyoev le oved kochavim, essentially the oved kochavim is giving him a matana, is giving him a gift in that situation, and so therefore, again, that is Rava's interpretation of this brisa, of this Tosefta. Again, Al Menashri is chaper b'hen Yisrael ochlan, Al Menashri is chaper ben Kohen, then Kohen ochlan. And the Gemara continues, Mesav Rav Shizvi. Rav Shizvi asked the following question, and this is from our Mishnah. It says, Elu menachos nikmatzos v'shirein lekohanim. The following carbon minchas, the kometz is taken, and the remainder is eaten by the kohanim. So we're talking about a carbon mincha, and it's about to say minchas ovdei kochavim. The Mishnah says one of the examples is a minchas ovdei kochavim. Minchas ovdei kochavim is nikmatzos v'shirein lekohanim. So it's not what Rav Huna said. Here we're saying very clearly that it is eaten. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Ha Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, ha Rabbi Akiva. It's actually a machlokas tanoim between Rabbi Yossi HaGlili and Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara continues, the Tanya, as we learned in the following brisa, Ish, it says in the pasuk, Ish, the full pasuk over here, Daber el Aaron v'el Bona v'el Kol b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta aleim ish mi beis Yisrael u'min hager b'Yisrael asher yakriv karbono l'chol nidreihem l'chol nidvosim asher yakrivu l'Hashem liola, talking about again bringing a carbon neder nedava, bringing an ola. It says Ish. Ma tamad lomar Ish. Why does it say Ish? My tamad lomar Ish. Why does it say Ish twice rather? L'rabos as ovdei kochavim. The pasuk is coming to include ovdei kochavim, even idolaters, non-Jews. Shenodrin nedarim u'nedavas k'Yisrael. They also can donate karbanos like a Yisrael. And then the pasuk finishes, Asher yakrivu l'Hashem liola. It says for an ola. Now, ein liela ola. I only know that they can donate an ola. Shlamim inayin. From where do we know shlamim? Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says nidreihem. It says in the pasuk nidreihem, and therefore that comes to include even a shlamim. Toda inayin. From where do we know a carbon toda, a Thanksgiving offering? Talmud Lomer nidvosam. It says in the pasuk nidvosam. Minayin l'rabos ha'ofos v'hayayin v'halavona v'ha'etzim. How do we know to include birds and to include wine and frankincense and wood? All of those can be donated. Talmud Lomar nidreihem l'chol nidreihem. It says in the pasuk specifically l'chol nidreihem. It's another inclusion. Nidvosam l'chol nidvosam. It says l'chol nidvosam, and that's a further inclusion. Imkei, now if all of this is included, ma Talmud Lomar ola. Why does it say ola? That would seem to be excluding something. And the Gemara says to that ola prat l'nazirus. Ola, that excludes the oved kochavim from nazirus, from being a nazir. Divrei Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. These are the words of Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, and so you see, according to Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, in fact, an oved kochavim can donate these various other karbanos. And the brisa continues with another opinion. Rabbi Akiva Omer. Rabbi Akiva says, Asher yakrivu l'Hashem liola. Again, that's offered is an Ola, Ein li ela Ola bilvad. It only refers to an Ola, and so therefore we see according to Rabbi Akiva again, when it comes to an Oved Kochavim, it's only an Ola. But the Gemara continues and asks, V'hai prat l'nezirus. Now the exclusion of Ovdei Kochavim from Nezirus, mehacha nafka, is that really learned from here, from what we just quoted above? There's actually another source for that. Mehasam nafka, it's learned from over there, from the following, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, v'yamarta aleim ish kiyafli lindor neder nazir lahazir. It says over here, b'nei Yisrael can do Nezirus. B'nei Yisrael nodrin, ve'no Ovdei Kochavim nodrin, and therefore we learn from here, b'nei Yisrael, Jewish people, they can become Nazir, but not Ovdei Kochavim, so we already have a source for that. And the Gemara says to that, no, Imei Hasim, if we only had that source over there, Hava Amina, one might have thought, Carbon Hu de Lolaisi, they don't bring a carbon, but Avol Nazirus Chalalayu, but still the concept of Nazirus does take effect upon them. And so Kamash Malon, that's the second source, that there's no Nazirus whatsoever. And Rashi Ksav Yad explains Prat Nazirus, to exclude Nazirus, meaning carbon Nazir, the carbon of a Nazir they're excluded from. The Hoel Vein Nazirus Chala Olav, since there's no Nazirus at all taking effect on him, Kidamar Lakamon, as we're going to say, carbon Nami Lo Maisi, so the carbon also is not brought. And the Gemara continues, Kaman Ozlaha Detnan, who does the following Mishnah, who does it follow? This is a Mishnah in Shkolim, and we're asking whether it follows Rabbi Yossi Haglili or Rabbi Akiva in terms of whether an Oved Kochavim is allowed to bring other karbonos outside of an Ola. The Mishnah in Shkolim says, Amar Rav Shimon says, Shiva Devarim Hiskinu Bezdin, there are 7 things that Bezdin instituted, V'zeh Echad Mehen, and the following is one of them. Oved Kochavim Shashilach Olasu Mimedina Sayam, if an Oved Kochavim sends his carbon Ola from far away, from overseas, V'shilach Imon he sends with it the funds to purchase its libations. These are the libations that will accompany the Ola. So then Craven Mishalo, then the libation can come from his funds. V'imlav, and if not, Craven Mishal Tzibor, then the libation should come from the communal funds. And so here it seems that an Oved Kochavim can not only send an Ola, but can send a Sachem as well. So Lame Rabbi Yossi Haglili, v'lo Rabbi Akiva, let us say this Mishnah follows Rabbi Yossi Haglili, and not Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says only an Ola. And the Gemara says to that, Afilu Tamer Rabbi Akiva, we can even say that this Mishnah follows Rabbi Akiva, Ola v'chol chaver, because what it means is an Ola and everything that accompanies it, on his Sachem accompanies the libations, they accompany the Ola, and so therefore they count as part of the Ola. And the Gemara continues, Man Tana Lahada Tana Rabbanan, who's the Tana of the following Brisa? The sages taught in a Brisa, Ezrach, it says Ezrach, means literally a citizen. Ezrach mevi nesachim, ve'en Oved Kochavim mevi nesachim. And Ezrach brings nesachim, brings libations, but an Oved Kochavim does not bring libations. Now, Yachol Lotei Olaso Tuna nesachim. Now, one might think that his Ola does not require libations. Talmud Lomar Kacha, the Pasuk says Kacha, and that indicates that the Ola of the Oved Kochavim should require libations. And the Gemara says, money. Now, who's the author of this brisa? Lo Rabbi Yossi Haglili, lo Rabbi Akiva. Doesn't seem to be Rabbi Yossi Haglili or Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Yossi Haglili, he says that all kinds of karbanos, the Oved Kochavim can bring all kinds of karbanos, many more types of karbanos, and Rabbi Akiva has a full limitation. Rabbi Akiva says that it's really only the carbon Ola. Rabbi Yossi Haglili, if it's Rabbi Yossi Haglili, ha'amar afilu yayinami, he would say that even wine also, an Oved Kochavim can bring the sachem, forget about with the Ola, he can bring the sachem alone. And Rabbi Akiva, and if it's Rabbi Akiva, ha'amar Ola in midi achrina lo, he says that the Oved Kochavim brings an Ola and nothing else. And the Gemara continues and answers, Ibo Yisayim Rabbi Yossi Haglili, if you want, we could say that this brisa is Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Ibo Yisayim Rabbi Akiva, if you want, we could say it's Rabbi Akiva. Ibo Yisayim Rabbi Yossi Haglili, if you want, we could say it's Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Sami me'ahi yayin, just remove from the earlier brisa wine. It said in the above brisa that Rabbi Yossi Haglili says an Oved Kochavim is allowed to bring all kinds of karbanos, and one of them in the list is wine. Remove wine. Actually, an Oved Kochavim, according to Rabbi Yossi Haglili, cannot bring standalone nesachim. V'ibo Yisayim Rabbi Akiva, and if you want, we could say that this brisa is Rabbi Akiva. Ola, because when it says Ola, it's not just an Ola, it's Ola v'chol chaveret, it's Ola and everything that accompanies it, and so therefore the wine that accompanies an Ola would not be a problem according to Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Rabbi Shimon Omer in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon said, Minchas chote shel kohanim, that the minchas chote of kohanim, again in general, when it comes to the mincha of kohanim, so it's entirely burned. But Rabbi Shimon says that what happens is that the kometz is separated and then they're both burned separately. The kometz is burned and the remainder is going to be burned. And the Gemara says, Minohani Mili, from where do we know this? To Tanu Rabbanan, because the sages taught in a brisa. V'haisal hakohen kamincha shetehei avodasa k'shei rabo. It says it's going to be for the Kohen like a mincha, and that means to say that the avoda is k'shei rabo. Rashi explains, shetei avodasa k'shei rabo Kohen shechata. If a Kohen sins, makrav hu atzmo mincha, so he himself can bring his mincha. V'achi darshina, we darshan as follows, Vaisal HaKohen, it says Vaisal HaKohen, Kolomar means to say, Im Im mishal kohen tehei, if it's from a kohen, ksheira lo lahakriv kashar menachos, he can bring it like other menachos. And the Brisa continues, Ata omer shetei avodasa ksheira bo, you're saying that he can bring it like any other mincha. Oeinu ela lahater minchas chote shel kohanim, or maybe it's in order to permit the minchas chote shel kohanim. And Rashi Ksaviat explains, Oeinu ela dahachi mashma, maybe it means as follows, Im shel kohen he, if it's a minchas chote of a kohen, tehei ka minchas chote shel Yisrael, it's going to be exactly like minchas chote of Yisrael, sheshireh nachon, that the remainder is eaten. Maybe that's actually what the pasuk is saying. It's lahater minchas chote shel kohanim. Umani mekayim, and if that's the case, so what would I do with the pasuk which says v'chol minchas kohen kolil tia lo sochal? It says that any mincha of a kohen has to be entirely burned. So that just means minchas nidvaso. That's a donated mincha of a kohen. Aval chovaso, but like a minchas chote, something that's an obligation, tehei nachelas, maybe that should be eaten. Talmud lomar, again the pasuk says v'haisel kohen ka mincha. It says that it's to the kohen like a mincha. Makish chovaso l'nidvaso, which is a way of comparing his obligation mincha to his donated mincha. Man idvaso ein nachelas, just like his donated mincha is not eaten. Av chovaso ein nachelas, so too his obligation is not eaten. And the Brisa continues. Amar Rabbi Shimon says, "V'chi nemar v'haisel kohen kim minchaso." Does the pasuk say will be for the kohen like his mincha? V'halo lo nemar ela kim mincha. It just says kim mincha. That's all the pasuk says. V'haisel kohen kam mincha. And so, what does the pasuk actually mean? Ela lahakish. Rather, it's to make a comparison. And Rashi explains, kam mincha kashar minchaso te minchas chovaso. The mincha of his obligation should be like his other minchas. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Dalid Amud Aleph.